This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
You are listening to Copy Chief Radio. Welcome back to another edition. Here is the Copy Chief himself, Mr. Kevin Rogers.
Sweet. Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, man, I'm really excited to bring Henry on today. Henry Bingaman is a house copywriter. He's the man in charge. Can I say that, Henry? Are you the man in charge, or would that cause trouble?
No, I mean, I'm not the man in charge, but I'm in charge of some things. We have a copy chief, Jed, so I don't want to pretend. All right. But yeah, I do help run some copy teams, and I'm one of the, senior copywriters, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, you're the man in charge of the projects you take on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, great. So senior copywriter over there at Money Morning, which is a division of Agora Publishing. And so, you're working in the big leagues, and how long have you been with them?
I think we did a first project as a freelancer with them in 2011, which was America, the Ultimate Pyramid Scheme. And then 2012, I signed on full-time with retainer. So, I mean, I'm a contractor, but I'm exclusively working with Money Morning.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know you've just been learning a ton. What were you freelancing before that? Just straight up?
Yeah, well, I've been working with a guy named Jed Canty for the past 6 years maybe. And he's one of the best copywriters in the industry right now, which in the financial publishing industry anyway. So I was with him at Newsmax for a little while before that. And before that, I was a freelancer.
Excellent. Great. So, and you post stuff all the time in Copy Chief that just, gets a lot of attention, and you're just a great teacher. So I want to say how much I appreciate that. You had a great thread called 3 Things You Should Be Testing But Probably Aren't, which was a huge, real value for everyone. So today we're going to talk about the process of, if you're a copywriter or, any business owner, and you always wondered, how do these amazing sales letters, these copy packages get created by the big publishers? The famous ones we hear all about. Obviously the most famous one in recent years is The End of America. Do you know the numbers on that, Henry?
Well, over 100 million in revenue, which if you bring up End of America to Jed, I hate to keep bringing Jed into this, but he'll get a little irritated with you. Yeah. Because he actually at Newsmax had the Aftershock promo, which did, I think, bigger numbers than End of America. But nobody remembers it.
Why is that? I don't know.
I think honestly, because we did video. So we were one of the first teams doing actual video. So people thought it was a sit-down interview, and they didn't realize it just did 150 million in sales or something like that. Right. It was crazy.
Amazing. Yeah. And it just, so much to learn from that piece, and all the kind of work you guys do. It's such a process. It's so different from working as, with an entrepreneur or, I don't want to, I guess smaller scale is a fair thing to say. It's just a bigger operation. There are a lot more eyeballs on the copy. It's a lot more collaborative.
If you look at, the financial market is one of the hardest to write for, along with health, because there's, I think, 150 million Americans that own stocks. So you're selling to this broad audience, and you have to get the psychology right in a letter that's going out to that kind of audience. So if you're selling to Labrador Retriever owners, which is, that's a pretty big audience, but you know that mindset pretty well. If you're trying to navigate the quagmire of just the average investor's brain, there's so many landmines you have to avoid that otherwise they'll just, you step on one of those, they're gone.
Yeah. Great point. And so you guys are deep in the research every day. Where does your best intel come from when you're, thinking through a package and what to avoid? Which of those landmines to avoid?
It's all intuition, really. So it's one of the hardest things to teach is intuition, but it actually can be taught, which is what kind of we're learning and trying to do. Actually, have you ever heard of chick sexing?
No, say it again.
Chick sexing.
Chick sexing. Yes. I have not.
All right, it's not as bad as it sounds. So the big hatcheries, so I'm talking about chicks.
Okay.
The big hatcheries, they have like 100,000 eggs hatch a week. And they have to sort those between male and female. And there's only really one way to tell the difference between a male chick and a female chick because they look exactly the same. You have to flip it over, squeeze the poop out, open the butt vent, which is, I'm sorry to say that, I don't know a better, cleaner way to say that. And then there's a little bump on the males and nothing on the females. So you put the males in one box and the females in the other. But there's a group of people in Japan that all they have to do is pick up the chick, look at its butt, and they know instantly. So if you're trying to get through 100,000 chicks, it's much more efficient to have that, just pick it up, look at the butt, know what it is. But
so that, wow.
Yeah, it's like really
there's so many
weird.
questions now.
So I got this out of a book called Incognito. I think David Eagleman's the guy's name. But the group of people in Japan, they wanted to pass that skill on, right? So they started a school to teach chick sexing. And basically all they do is they stand over the student's shoulder. The student picks up, looks at the butt, and guesses, male or female, and just throws it in one bucket or the other. And the teacher just goes, yep, no, yes, no. Like thousands and thousands of times for weeks and weeks. And eventually, slowly, they just start to get it right. Like they start to know which is which just by looking at its butt. So thousands and thousands of times just with yes or no. And you can teach intuition, which is, so I mean, it's kind of funny that just by looking at thousands of chicks' asses, you get to be an expert.
And so this sounds, just to dive deeper into this for a second, are they faster at it because they don't have to squeeze the poop out, or that part still has to happen?
No, they don't. They don't have to do anything. They just pick it up and look. And
get it.
And they really can't explain why. Like they don't know what they're doing. They just know. They pick it up, look at it. It's either a boy or a girl, and they just know. From just doing it thousands and thousands of times, you can learn that skill. Which is, it's how I learned to write copy. It's how I try to teach people to write copy, right? You just read something they have you, or they send you, and you say, yes, you got that right, or no, you didn't. And you have to do it hundreds of times to get it right. But it's just that repetition.
To develop instincts, yeah.
But you can, it's intuition. You can develop the intuition under the right instruction. And I mean, most people get that instruction from the market, right? They write something, put it out, and they either buy or don't buy. That's a yes or no.
Right.
But you can accelerate that with a good copy team and teachers.
Yeah, great point. And that's kind of the idea, not to go down a rabbit hole here, but we keep hearing more and more about these, computer programs who are writing copy. And the idea is that they can just test so fast, or, and they can read the information and sort of like, stare at chick butts. and it's such a rapid pace that's why some people will say, well, humans could never keep up with the pace of that testing. Right.
Yeah. How does a machine test emotion?
Exactly.
I don't think they're there yet. Like,
that's the thing. Right.
You have to be in tune with the emotion. And that's really the instinct. It's, I say mental quagmires of people's brains. Like the landmine is just, did you hit the wrong emotion? Or did you not hit the right emotion?
So is that one of the intuitions a great copywriter would pride themselves on is, no, I just know emotionally this isn't going to connect.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to be able to look at something, read it and go, yeah, I got that, or no, that's not, or with a high likelihood or a better chance of succeeding. Yeah. You're never going to know every time, but getting the emotion right is one of the hardest things to teach. And it's just, I think, repetition. So, I mean, that's why I kind of broke. So when I was learning, one of my first mentors, I guess you would call him, I was working at writing for the Institute of Natural Health. So Mark Ford. Yeah. And he would I'd send something in and I'd get these like giant caps locked comments under pieces of copy that were basically yes or no. Like, this isn't right or this is right. And then he'd show me a different way to do it, and then you just do it dozens of times until it's good enough to go out. And the same way when I was learning with Jed, it's just that's right, that's not right. And
so, how much would they explain why and not?
Oh, you always try to explain why, but like, how do you explain how to evoke an emotion? Like, if you're, I don't know, you watch any like the singing competitions?
Sure.
I was watching The Voice last night. Don't tell anybody on this public podcast, but. They're giving their like the experts or the pop musicians, whatever they are, giving the people, the contestants, advice about that's not the right emotion, and you have to really make the person feel it. And you're like, okay, how do you translate that? But I mean, they do it because they go out and that's the Beatles sang 10 million gigs before they were famous or whatever that example is. You just go out there and do it until you can feel what that emotion feels like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Well, I know from comedy, right? It's like,
Oh yeah, it's a perfect example.
you get on stage, and I always say that, when comics would come off stage, even if they were in the room watching you, they would still say when they're about to go up to the comic who just came off stage, how are they? Right?
Yeah.
And what they mean is, how did it feel up there? Is it weird? Is there a weird energy in one part of the room? Is there a couple making out in the front row that I didn't see, completely ignoring the show? Like, what's the energy? What's the emotion? Right?
Yeah.
So I totally get it. Wow. Well, this is so far the most intriguing conversation I've ever had. We've covered chick butts, how to develop intuition, and the mysterious ability of capturing and identifying the right emotion in copy. And now let's get to the topic we plan to cover. I can tell you already that this is going to be a two-parter, because Henry's generous enough to share with us his what he teaches sort of the new copywriters that work under him at Monday Morning. And he has 7 story types. As you know, stories, critically important element to any good piece of sales copy. Story is emotion, essentially. So Henry, thank you for sharing these. We'll probably get through 3 or 4 of them in this half, and then we'll come back and cover the others in the second half.
Okay, that's good. So, do you want to just go down the list? Or,
let's just start with number 1.
If
you want to frame up a little bit how is there any hard and fast rule for where to interject copy, or is that part of intuition as well, or where to interject story and copy?
Well, I consider all, like, if I write a full promotion, the whole thing's a story to me. Like, right down until I ask him for the sale, that's all a story. It's just not, it's not like a fiction story, but it's a story that has individual pieces. So you can kind of get, granular on these stories and break them into a million pieces. Like, you go line by line, but basically I've kind of discovered or decided or analyzed that there's basically 7 stories that all of our promos have to have before they'll work. So the first one, if we're just going to get into it, is the paradigm shift story. So that's just basically the world was this way, the reader's world was this way, and then you're going to tell them something that shows them the world is not what they thought it was. So I sent you one of the promotions I just ran. It's still out in the networks, actually. It's called Neural Imprinting headline. The neural imprinting, basically it's a virtual reality promo. So neural imprinting is the medical application of virtual reality to pain. So I started this story, or this promotion, telling a story of First Lieutenant Scott Jackson. He got rolled over an IED in Afghanistan, got 3rd-degree burns over most of his body. It was so bad even when he's asleep, he dreamt of being on fire. But there's this new device that's non-invasive, drug-free, no dangerous side effects. And even though morphine wasn't working for him, as soon as they put this thing on, his pain just evaporated. So that's an amazing story for the paradigm shift, right? People think, okay, there's pain. This soldier's in terrible pain. The only way to treat pain in the old model of the world is drugs or surgeries or nerve blocks. Nope, this guy puts on just a headset and all of a sudden his pain's gone. So that's a paradigm shift story, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing the world very differently after the story's, by the peak of that story.
Yeah.
And, you can see that in every promo. But it could be something as simple as, like, you think your dog's always going to poop in the house. Well, guess what? It's not. Because there's this new whiz-bang thing, right? A paradigm shift story is the world just has to change in a way that the reader is interested in, right? And their view of the world just has to change.
Now, are these in any kind of order where they might logically appear in the copy, or is it?
I usually lead with the paradigm shift.
Yeah.
You can see a lot of people that lead with the second one, which is the guru or the backstory. Mm-hmm. I like to. The paradigm shift is the crux of your argument. Like, it frames the whole thing.
Okay.
I think more than so. If you're Porter Stansberry, you tend to frame everything with how amazing you are.
Right, yeah.
He talks for a few minutes at the beginning of every promo about all the things he's correctly predicted.
Yeah.
So he's just setting up. You could say that's a paradigm shift, but there wasn't a person that knew everything, and now there is. But really, like, if you look at his End of America, for example, he talks about himself for a while and then says, by the way, there's going to be rioting and looting and rioting and martial law. Mm-hmm. So that in there is the paradigm shift. He just starts with the guru backstory. And I mean, there's no hard and fast rule where anything goes in a story, but all of these pieces are going to be in there.
Yeah.
If it's going to work.
Okay, great. So number one, the paradigm shift, where we take, we change the worldview of the reader to some degree in their favor.
Well, not necessarily. We have a Jim Rickards promo we ran last year where basically the dollar was going to collapse. So they went from a world that was stable to a world that's unstable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's an equally powerful paradigm shift. The solution then you're selling is how to protect yourself from that.
Right. So we can go big promise of sort of nirvana or big fear of destruction.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a big change.
Gotcha. Great.
That affects the reader positively or negatively.
All right. Perfect.
So the guru backstory, a lot of people, I think, overdo this one. There was a study, I forget the book I read it in, but people's first impression of you is the average of the things you tell them, not the number of things you tell them. So a lot of people, like especially stock pick gurus, I'm in the financial industry, there's a lot of those guys. You know, it's better to tell them that you got a 500% gain once on Tesla than tell them you got a 500% gain on Tesla and a 100% gain on this one and a 5% gain on this one, right? You're just bringing your credibility down the more you tell. So tell the backstory of that guru as long as it's relevant to the overall theme or, you know, your story working, and as long as it's powerful. If you only have one powerful thing, that's fine. Mm-hmm. You know, with the Jim Rickards, we have Jim Rickards, former analyst for the CIA, NSA, and Homeland Security, predicts financial downfall, right? That's pretty much all the backstory you need.
Right.
Because there's so much credibility established there. Now, actually, we went more into that because he wrote a program that predicted some terrorist attacks and all that. But one powerful thing is all you need for a backstory. But the more you can draw it out with the powerful things, items, proof points, the better it'll be.
Okay, great. So they could always almost be like mini stories within the guru backstory, backing up their gurudom.
Yeah. So Michael Robinson is he's our tech investing expert. He's 35 years. He's been a venture capitalist, a board member of a venture capital firm. He's been an advisor to 12 high-tech startups. And depending on the promotion that we're doing, I'll go all the way back to the 80s when he was working with, you know, the heads of Chrysler and GM. And he was at the initial meeting for when cloud computing was mapped out. But like, if you're doing a brand new technology promo, do you really want to tell people he was back in the 80s working on cars?
Right.
So I think you should be able to write the whole story. And if I have a new copywriter, I'll make him write everything out there, like everything he can find that he thinks is powerful. And then we'll just cut down to put it in the promo. Mm-hmm. So, I think you should write everything. Yeah. Because it's always, you need to get it all down on paper because you need to know what you're talking about.
Sure.
Like you need to have, even if it's like that iceberg, you need to know what's under the surface, even if you don't say it, because it'll come through in the writing and you'll know what to pull up when you need to.
Yeah, great point. There's a fun book. I don't know if you've read it, from William Zinsser. You probably know his On Writing Well book, but he has another book called Writing to Learn.
Okay.
Which is similar to what you're saying here. It's like the idea of, using the art of writing just to learn subjects better, and I think that's an important note on that. You have younger copywriters, really any copywriter needs to write the full thing out, because there's no better way to learn it than to have to sit and describe it and explain it in a clear way as you're writing.
Well, yeah, and if you're, I think a business owner is even more important, right? Like you have a lot of entrepreneurs in the copy chief area, so they should all be writing out as much of their story as they can.
Yes,
and knowing what parts of it to tell.
100%. Yeah, we have a thing called the Question Authority Worksheet, which is just that. And I tell people, I say, go away from all distraction, all electronics, and just indulge in this process of writing out, answering each question as much as you can think about it. and it's people come back and you know, it's like they've been to therapy.
Oh, it is. I mean, writing is meditative, I think. If you reflect, you kind of get things out, you make connections you didn't think because it's all in front of you. Like the more you write, the better insights you'll get. Absolutely.
Okay, great. So we're nearing the end of part 1. Let's get in one more.
All right. Well, the shocking discovery is that's the third one I have listed here. Again, sometimes it's later, further on, but like this one's real quick because it's just how was this thing discovered? How did this thing come to be? Mm-hmm. And I put shocking in there because otherwise people will write a boring story, right? All of these stories have to be engaging and interesting. So, you know, if I ask you, I don't know, how the carburetor was just, you know, you have a new carburetor. Well, how was that? Write a shocking discovery story for that. Just how many details can you find? How can you crank up the emotion on that? That's why, you know, otherwise it's just, well, I was in my garage playing around with some things and I come out with this carburetor, right? Like, I mean, it's pretty good.
It's got to work. And I mean, it smelled a lot like gas and everything, but.
So, I mean, I did a promo for based on a medical company that developed a cancer vaccine. And like, it was just, well, they had this thing and it worked as a vaccine. So I just went into a lot of detail about how vaccines work, with the immune system swarming in and trying to find ways to defeat this and then going off and replicating millions of times. Like, yeah, it's just how a vaccine works. But if you get into all the detail and just pump it up, you know, make it interesting, make it engaging, that'll crank it up, you know?
Got it. So shocking doesn't necessarily mean jaw-dropping, like can't believe it. It's more the cumulative effect of all the interesting details.
I think so. I mean, it doesn't have to shock. Shocking might not be the best. You know, this isn't 100% perfect list.
No.
But yeah, it's a discovery story, but it's an emotional discovery story. Maybe that's a better way to say it.
Yeah, cool. Perfect. All right, great. Henry, this is great stuff. We'll end part 1 right here, and we're going to come back for the next episode with the final 4 story elements that go into winning copy pieces, sales letters, VSLs, all the important stuff, emails, everything. And Henry, you mentioned that, you know, this is when you sort of instruct the writers to write all these stories, you know that they're going to come up in all elements of the promotion. So that's an important note, everybody, that, you know, when you're writing these kinds of stories, and like Henry said, thinking them through in amazing detail, you'll just have a wealth of material to use throughout the promotion, and it'll make everything nice and congruent. So hugely valuable here, Henry. Appreciate you doing this, and we'll see you back for part 2.
All right, sounds good.
You've been listening to Copy Chief Radio. Thank you for tuning in. If you're digging what we are laying down for you, then your next step is to go over to iTunes, type in Copy Chief Radio into the search bar, and when you find the show, subscribe. We will be back in your earbuds next week.
This is the podcastfactory.com.